So I'm really excited to bring up Amanda Calzada and Jessica Eggert. Amanda is a transitional bilingual kindergarten teacher from Chicago in Chicago Public Schools, and she's also a member of the DonorsChoose board. And DonorsChoose, you might know, is a nonprofit that lets people donate directly to public school classroom projects, and they funded over 1 million projects to date. Some of them are totally fascinating. I could talk about those all day. And Jessica Eggert is the CEO of LegUp. It's a company which helps childcare business owners succeed while also helping working parents access affordable and quality childcare. She's also an advisor to Ethel's Club, the first social club in digital community for people of color, and the Females Founders Alliance, a national community for women entrepreneurs. I'm really excited to talk to both of you. Teachers are being asked to shoulder a huge burden, and working parents who already are carrying a tough load, and I put myself in that category, we're carrying even more. And you both have been inspiring to me personally, watching you figure out how to help the people who are holding it all together for us right now. It's really inspiring. So thank you guys. Amanda, I'd love to start off with you. If you could tell us a little bit about your classroom and what you've done to make things work for your students, and specifically if you have any other tips and tricks you can share with teachers.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. I am so excited to share some of my perspectives. I'm going to start off by saying that this is hard. This has been really, really hard from the spring, and we're facing different challenges now as we enter the fall. And I think the most important thing for people to understand about teachers right now is that we are trying to hold it together, and we are trying to navigate this with little experience in how to do this. So much of what we do thrives off of being in a social atmosphere in our classrooms with our students. And so although we can do that virtually, and for the most part, there's more equity with technology to be able to do so this time around, there's a lot of challenges that we're facing. We have schedules that we're trying to work out, routines that work for the different ages and grade levels, and just trying to navigate this when families are in their households and they have multiple children and they have all their kids sitting at the same table, and there are distractions, and parents are trying to balance their work. And it's tough. It's tough for everyone. There are a lot of teachers that are teaching from home that have their own children that are in class in the next room, and just trying to manage that has been really hard. I think the other factor in this, especially in a district like mine, being the third largest in the country, and the area I'm in particular has a lot of low income families, is the equity with the supplies that they need to be able to work as well. It's difficult for me. I have the young children, I teach kindergarten, and so there's only so much they can do on a computer, and I've had to be very creative with the ways that I can get them engaged, not necessarily needing to be literate with technology or with reading, because a lot of the things I'm trying to point out, they can't even read. So that has definitely been interesting. And I think that one thing that has gotten me through this, and I hope that can help other teachers too, is just remembering that children are more resilient than sometimes we think they are, and they can adapt so well. That was something that I had a huge fear of at the start of the school year with a brand new group of kids. I didn't know their parents, I didn't know them, and I didn't know what to expect. But I have been amazed by the ways that parents have helped their children, that children have helped each other through the computer screen, the way they've helped me. They've helped me navigate some of the technology that I'm learning how to use. And I think the most critical thing that kind of speaks on what Opal and Francis were saying as well are those relationships. We need to look at the mental health of our students and our parents and our teachers, and the best way to do that is to build really strong relationships with them and environments where they can be vulnerable and express their frustrations and their needs, but then we can also celebrate the wins and the fun things that are happening that we're doing in our classrooms.
Thank you so much for that. Is there any other, just a quick tip or trick? You talked about engaging them through the screen, just something for the other teachers in here that you've tried that you might suggest someone else trying?
Absolutely. Don't fear being creative and getting silly. It might feel strange at first in front of a computer screen, but I've done a lot of fun things with my students that they have loved. We'll do freeze dance throughout the day to get ourselves moving. We do scavenger hunts where they'll go through their home and they'll find their favorite food or something that is their favorite color. And it allows us to build those relationships in a really authentic way because we see them in their most natural environment. And then doing some themed days. I had a lot of fun with my students doing silly hair day. We did a mismatch day. We did a pajama day where they could bring their favorite stuffed animal or toy. And we've shared baby pictures and family pictures and just really utilizing all the things around them in their home that could be strong learning tools that we actually don't have access to when we're in the classroom. It opens a whole world of possibilities to be creative and really get into their lives and then connect that to the academic content that you're teaching as well.
Thank you. And Amanda, you mentioned how important that relationship with parents is and how important the parents are for this. And I'm telling you, we're struggling. And so Jessica, I wanted to ask you, you've been passionate about helping working parents even before the pandemic hit. I'd love to know a little bit about the problems you saw then for working parents, how that's changed, and what, I mean, just quite specifically, what you're doing right now to help working parents.
Yeah, thank you so much. And Amanda, I want to thank you as a teacher. Oh my gosh, I have a second grader. And the work you all are doing right now is incredibly difficult, but it's so needed, especially at the kindergarten level, that social emotional development and the way you've been able to get silly with kids. It's been fantastic. So thank you so much for all the work that you've done as well. And so Nisha, you know, I actually spent the first part of my career leading HR and business operations teams and supporting global employees, especially parents, creating benefits and programs that could help all of our employees thrive at work. And you know, every year we end up seeing parents with children of all ages making career sacrifices due to inaccessibility to childcare for their children while they're at work. And you know, the statistics show it wasn't just something that I was seeing. In the United States, 2 million parents left the workforce from 2016 to 2018 due to that inaccessibility. Before COVID, mothers were already spending an average of 14 hours a week on childcare on top of work. And we saw parents, especially moms, facing pressure and struggle to be involved parents. And I think now, given COVID 2020's challenges in general, it's even more challenging. Some parents are more involved than ever as we educate and care for our children while working from home. And some are less involved than they really want to be, especially those who are essential workers out there keeping us safe in hospitals, the firefighters right now, right? And you know, and given childcare challenges, because of COVID, it's actually expected that 27% of parents are going to be leaving the workforce. On a positive note, I think a few people have mentioned this, you know, I'm seeing more people, more parents, more communities really step up to support each other as we find our own solutions. And, you know, a lot of organizations are banding together to find ways to support each other. I think that we've gotten rid of the competitiveness. A lot of the competitiveness has decreased. And now it's how can we come together and support each other as best as we can.
And so I'd love to actually continue that, Jessica. I know as a parent, you yourself were struggling on this idea of pods and learning environments. Can you tell this group what a pod is? Because a lot of us have been hearing about it. And, you know, what made your decision to try that out, and how can we make that accessible to more people?
Yeah. So pods are small groups of, right now we're seeing a lot of school age children, right? Where there's usually a teacher, a tutor, somebody that's helping a child learn remotely, or even homeschooling children themselves. And there are a few types of pods. I break them into 3 different areas. There's the privately funded ones that are created by companies that are popping up to support children and families. There's the publicly funded ones that are usually out of libraries and community centers. And then there's the neighborhood ones where parents in a community, in a neighborhood, really kind of a social contract of some type, saying we are going to support each other, we're going to, you know, stay as safe as possible, here's what our guidelines look like, and we're going to help educate each other's children. And the decision to join a pod is a difficult one. and it's not one that everyone can do. I know for us, it was a really difficult decision. It's expensive. I mean, often private school tuition costs. I mean, and you're choosing to have your child spend time with a lot of others, and many families can't afford pods, and then it's definitely not an option for those who are immunocompromised. And so, to make it accessible, when you think about accessibility, pods definitely aren't always the most accessible choice, right? We're really gonna have to see government either have to, step in to add funding and structure to this system, hopefully a temporary system, but to the system. But, what's more than likely going to happen is that more pods are going to be popping up in neighborhoods, I think, in a co-op style fashion where parents take turns educating or pitching in to bring in a tutor. For us, it was really a difficult decision to put our son in a pod. We chose a publicly funded one where we found it to be the most equitable, where there were scholarships for those who couldn't afford the care. And we would consider a neighborhood one, but what I think that parents and individuals need to think about as they're creating these pods is, how can we make it as inclusive as possible? How can we make sure our children are seeing people who look different to them? How can we make sure that we're supporting the people who really need this support? And then one of the biggest things we have to think about is keeping our children in the public education system. So many people are pulling them out, doing homeschooling, private school, whatever works for your family. I think that's important. We have to take care of ourselves first, but we also have to think about the fact that as we pull more of our children out of the public school system, funding starts to go away. And we may not have that public education system to come back to, and we can't afford to lose our amazing educators. So I would say, as we think about pods, do the pods, but do the remote learning as much as we can, and support our public education system.
I'm glad you mentioned that. We're going to talk a little bit more about public education for sure, but that, I want to turn it to you, Amanda, on this question. Teachers, especially my kids are also in public school, and my husband's a public school teacher. I was lucky to serve on the PTA for 9 years. I know how scarce the funding is for our public schools. I've seen us scrounge dollars for supplies and carpets and just trying to figure out the little things. What can we do to help you as teachers right now? Are there things that everyone listening here could do to help teachers that are trying to make this work?
Jessica brought up a lot of great points when it comes to accessibility and equity. And although in a district like mine this year, there's more accessibility when it comes to the technology that's distributed, there's still a lot of other resources that our students need and they don't have the accessibility to. And this is where my role in DonorsChoose and as a teacher on the site has been so critical, because DonorsChoose allows teachers, public school teachers, to create projects and ask for the materials that they need for their instruction, and most importantly, that their students need for their learning. Just an example, I have a student right now who is writing on the back of mail with broken crayons from the previous school year. So it is so critical that we are getting these supplies in their hands. My students are 5 years old. They need crayons, they need pencils, they need notebooks. And luckily for DonorsChoose, I was able to make projects on there as well. I received some funding, which is amazing. My supplies are coming in. I'm getting some of the instructional tools I need, and I'm working on getting those supplies to my students. So I think as Jessica said, we have to support our public education. We have to support our public school teachers. And if you're looking to make a donation to a teacher in a community near you or across the country, you can explore some of those projects on the website. Teachers are some of the most creative people. I'm being one, but I meet others and they amaze me, they teach me, they inspire me. And so I encourage you to take a look at some of those projects and support some of the public school teachers and students across our country.
Thank you so much for that. And I know we've got to wrap up our section, but Jessica, I wanted to also, for parents out there and also people in workplaces, just quickly, if you can just mention your survey before we hand it over to Van, what's going to be happening next week.
Yeah, I think, companies are really trying to find a way to support their working parent and caregiver employees. But the first thing we have to do is listen. We often jump to finding solutions without understanding what people are going through. And so a group of executives at local organizations in Washington and I came together to create a working parent support survey that's actually going global now. It goes live on Monday. You can find it at workingparentsupportguide.com. And we'll be taking that data and then working with organizations to create equitable solutions, including policies and programs, and finding the right benefits to help parents stay in the workforce, to support our communities, and get the children the care and the support that they need to thrive.